What's up, friends? Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Pam. I have a lot of plants and that's what we talk about here. Today we're talking about something that you all requested from me, and that is how to keep and take care of and overwinter Coleus plants indoors. When I first started getting this question, I was a little confused because to me, Coleus has always been an indoor plant because that's the only way I've ever had it. So up until that point, I didn't realize that most people were accustomed to only having these outdoors and then just saying goodbye to them when winter rolls around. That makes my heart sad. First of all, why would you want to have Coleus indoors? Well, in my opinion, Coleus is an excellent way to add color and interest to your indoor garden without having to have fussy plants like, say, a croton. Now, I had a croton for about 5 years, but I will tell you that that thing went through so many moods that I had to break up with it eventually. I got tired of it throwing leaves at me. Frankly, we had a dysfunctional relationship and I ended it. My favorite houseplant book refers to this as the poor man's croton, and for me that's perfectly fine because I'm used to having the poor man's everything. It's fine. There are over 1,500 known varieties of the Coleus plant, and well, there is a little bit of confusion among the botanical name. Right now, we're going with the one that's on the screen that your girl's not even gonna try to wrestle her tongue around. I went to school for writing, not speaking. These plants prefer bright light, but they definitely do not like to be in the midday direct sun. I keep most of my Coleus, including this gigantic bush here, in my eastern window, which takes a real good chunk of that morning sun, and just when it's about to get real hot, it goes around to the other side of the house, so my plants don't get that full blast. I do have this plant. This is the Othello variety of Coleus. I got this from Steve's Leaves, and I have been keeping this one in a southern window. It does get a good beating of direct light, but it seems to take it pretty well, and I think that's because of the dark foliage. Like most tender foliage plants, these do need some humidity. They're not quite at the humidity hoe level, and I keep all my humidity hoes in the bathroom, but these guys do pretty well in the rest of my house. Come winter time, I'll just move them away from any heat source, and that's usually enough to keep them moderately happy. These plants like to have a moist soil. Think along the lines of a fern. They do have very tender roots, and those roots can dry out very easily. When the plant starts to dry out, you will get leaf drop, but don't worry too much about it. These plants are pretty hardy. A lot of times you can cut them back, remove the dead foliage, and they'll just keep coming back over and over. This variety right here, I believe, is the Rediculous version from Proven Winners, and I have had pieces of this plant going for just about 10 years now. It's a pretty incredible plant. I have all but killed it a few times, and I would just take some tip cuttings and reroot the plant and start all over again, and here we are. When you're taking tip cuttings, there's a couple ways to do things. If you end up taking long cuttings like this, you'll have a very long stem, a lot of roots, and you'll eventually end up with a pretty leggy plant. So this is an example of what happens when you take cuttings that are long stem. A lot of times the foliage won't really grow in on these bottom parts of the stem, and you'll just end up with this kind of silly plant. That's how I learned that lesson. Lately, my favorite way to propagate these has been by taking just a 2 or 3 node leaf cutting. You can even go ahead and remove these leaves here and just keep the top 2. I added a layer of vermiculite over the top. This is generally what I do when I'm growing something from seed because this allows the media to stay moist at the top, which is where things tend to dry out, especially if you're using a grow light. So this is basically makes it fuck-up proof. So I'll just put this right in the moist media, just like that, and I'll fill this container with cuttings, and then I'll have a nice bushy plant to start over with that will be ready to grow into a large plant come springtime. Just a quick word about pests for Coleus. They are susceptible to mealybugs and also dampening off and powdery mildew. A good way to prevent that, especially in the winter, which we'll touch on, is by keeping the air circulating. What I did not do enough of, and I still didn't do enough of it this year, that's why this plant is so big, is pinch the plants. If you pinch the plants, they will get bushier. You'll be able to better control their size and shape because these do get a little crazy. You can see here on my Othello that this one was reaching for the sun and it's kind of grown all nutty. So this is actually pretty difficult to have on a shelf with other things because it's constantly pulling at other plants and just being a general pain in the ass. The key to overwintering a Coleus is cutting them back. Coleus need a lot of sun, and in the winter, obviously, we do not get as much sun. By cutting the plant back, you're reducing the amount of vegetation that the plant has to struggle to keep alive with less sun, which is essentially the plant's food. I mean, it is the plant's food. But with less food, you want less mouths to feed, if you think of it that way. Nope. Oh God. Okay. I'm mic'd up. So, this is a really good example of what happens when you let your Coleus go buck wild all summer long. This guy used to be entirely dark red, just like this one, because it was as close to the window as this one is now. But because it got so big, I had to move it back a little bit. Because of that, it has gone red and green, and this is what it looks like when it gets less sun. And this is what it looks like when it gets full sun. Pretty cool. It sort of has a smaller canopy. We take these away and you can see there's a much smaller, more compact plant growing in underneath these giant light gobbling leaves. So this is going to be the plant that I'm going to maintain over the winter time, and these I will make cuttings of, and I'll either put them in a vase like this for decoration or to root later on, or more likely I will make a bunch of small cuttings, grow some more plants, and pass them on to friends. A few other key factors to having success overwintering your Coleus is to not fertilize it over the winter time. And you're also going to scale back on your watering. Something that's especially important with Coleus is air circulation. Any plants that have these fuzzy, kind of tender leaves and foliage, you really want to keep the air moving in the winter time. You don't want to end up with a powdery mildew, and these are very susceptible to dampening off. So it all goes with not overwatering, keeping the air moving, and cutting the plant back. And your plants will last all winter long, so you can keep them to put them back outside, or you can keep maintaining indoor plants, or you can do what I do and do both. Right now I'm trying to find the very, very tiny seeds that are inside of the flowers that I let grow on my outdoor Coleus, so I can see if I can germinate those, and I'll let you guys know how that goes. So I'm going to enjoy this very tall, beautiful, mixed pot of Coleus for a little while longer before I cut this one back. But I can show you how I'm going to cut the other one back because it's about time for that one. Anytime I go to prune a plant or remove foliage in any way, I always sanitize the tools that I'm going to use with rubbing alcohol. I just sanitized my leg with it too. Now we're working with clean tools. We won't pass any funky diseases around to our other plants, and we can start chopping back this plant. So I'm basically going to be cutting back to this smaller little plant back here. This guy back here, I don't know what's happening with these dudes, so they're just gonna come right off. And I'm gonna cut them back at a node back here. If I don't see any leaves forming, I just kind of cut back to a node where I would like leaves to start forming. Okay, we're down to this. Pretty crazy. This hurts me a little bit every year, I'm not gonna lie. I know it's good for the plant, but it hurts my heart a little bit. So you can see where I have done this earlier in the month because one of the branches had gotten broken. It's already regrowing leaves from where I cut it. So basically anywhere you cut this, it will start growing from the node that you cut it to. And then from these, I can just take some cuttings. And this will join my friend over here in the potting medium. So this leggy plant right here, because it's taking up so much space, will probably also be cut way back. And then I'm gonna fill this pot up with some vermiculite and pot it up with the cuttings from all of these stem cuttings I now have. So what do you guys think? Are you gonna try Coleus indoors? Do you already have them? Let me know down below in the comments. I would love to talk to you about one of my favorite kinds of plants. If this wasn't enough Coleus chat for you and you want to take a really deep dive, check out episode 62 of On the Ledge podcast. I've linked it down below in the description box. Thank you for watching my video, friends. Thank you for almost 4,000 subscribers, and I hope you find this helpful. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye. Shave and a haircut, 2 bits.